Hello everyone, I'm back again with a new video. In this video, I will explain the options which we have inside the setting in a Nutanix cluster. We can go to the settings homepage either by clicking on this icon over here or by simply going to this drop down menu to the last options. On the left side, we can see that all the options in the settings are available. They're under some specific categories. First one is general, then setup, network, security, users and roles, alerts and notification, data resiliency, and at the end it's aprons. So we'll start from the top. At the top under general, the first option is cluster details. We can reach the cluster details. The same options will be shown over here, or by clicking the cluster name, you will be shown the exact options available here as well. We have here cluster information, cluster UID, cluster ID, cluster incarnation ID, and cluster subnet. We have cluster name, which you can modify and change it. Fully qualified domain name in case if you want to um, provide it for your cluster. Virtual IP, VP for the IPv6 and IPv4 available here. You can provide them. And then we have IDS IP, which is simply the ISCSI data service IP, which is used by third-party entities which they want to connect to Nutanix Unified Storage. It can be a backup solution, it can be physical server which you want to provide access to the volume group on top of Nutanix. Down here we have retain and deleted virtual machines. By default this check mark is available or is selected. When it's selected, if you delete any virtual machines, it will keep it in the recyclable for 24 hours, 1 day, and you can recycle it in case if you delete a virtual machine by mistake. At the end here we have the cluster encryption state. As you can see here is not encrypted. Configure CVM. Configure CVM, it's for the memory. It is always recommended from the Nutanix that you have all the CVMs in a cluster to have the same amount of memory. As you can see here is 20 GB for each node in my cluster. So in case if you want to increase it, you can simply select that particular size, and the CVMs will be increased to that particular amount, one after another, so there will be no downtime for your workloads. Expand cluster, in case if you want to add a node, you can simply do it from here. Obviously, it is better to keep the new node in the same OS and same AOS and same hypervisor version, so it will be much faster. And then again, the network, it should be similar to one which is available here on your cluster. Image configuration, in case if you want to upload any disk or ISO images, you can do it from here. You can simply click on upload image, provide a name, annotation if you want, and then image type, either it's going to be ISO or disk. And then you can provide the location either from the URL, if its URL is going to point to that particular ISO or disk, or you can upload it by selecting the upload file and then upload the file from your computer. Here in storage container, you can select the place which you want to save this ISOs. From reboot, you can reboot your nodes. Simply select that particular node and then reboot it. What it will do, it will offload the virtual machines from the top of that node, and then it will keep the CVM in the maintenance mode, and it will shut it down, and then it will keep the host in maintenance mode, and it will restart the node for you. And in case if there is any affinity between the virtual machine and node, it will inform you that it's not able to offload or to remove one of the, or to migrate that virtual machines from itself. So it will ask you to take the actions. remote support. Sometimes when you create a case with the Nutanix support, they will ask you to allow them to connect to the cluster. From here, you can provide that access by enabling for particular hours or minutes, so they can remotely through the SSH connect to your cluster and investigate more about the issue which you have opened the case with them. You have the full control over here to enable it, to give them access or no. So in case that's against your company policy, you can just not provide it to them. So they're entitled to always ask you, and without your permission, they will not be able to connect to your cluster. Upgrade software, it's a location that if your Nutanix clusters have access to the internet, it will show you all those versions which is available. Here in particular file server, you can see all the versions, different versions of file server available for my cluster, which I can download any of them and then follow the other steps for installations. So you don't have to go and run after the compatibility to see if it's compatible or not, because Nutanix does the compatibility test for you. You can even from here upload the version if you want to upload it, if you have already downloaded from the internet. Let's say if your internet is not fast enough and you have a faster internet somewhere else, you can download the binaries here and then simply upload it here. So instead of downloading it over here in the cluster. We have hypervisor as well, but as you can see, it's already moved to the LCM. That will be here, so I'm not going to cover that, but it used to be many options, but now by time it's been reduced, and maybe with the file server will be removed as well in the new version of the iOS. Alright, so next option we have here setup. Under setup we have options which connects in Nutanix to different entities, let's say. So when connect to Citrix Cloud, we can connect our cluster to a Citrix Cloud. In case if you have a VDI and you want to use this Nutanix cluster for a VDI or for any other use cases which you want to integrate the Nutanix cluster with it, you can do it from here. Prism Central registrations, you can register your cluster to a Prism Central, or if you don't have Prism Central, you can even create one, and then once that node Prism Central is up, you can integrate it with this Nutanix cluster. Pulse, because I'm using Nutanix Community Edition, so by default it should be enabled. It's mandatory for Community Edition, but for production cases, you can disable it if you want. So it's basically provides an insight inside your cluster hardware and software to Nutanix support, which is being observed 24/7. So in case if there is an issue with the Nutanix hardware, if your underlying hardware is from Nutanix, they will immediately provide you an alert, and even they might dispatch a hardware immediately. It's all based on your SLA, what sort of SLA you have with the Nutanix. So yeah, you could be in the weekend, it could be a weekend and a hardware goes down, and if you have a support and the Nutanix, the hardware is from Nutanix, by this pulse they can observe that failure for you. They will inform you, and if they confirm from their side that this is actually a hardware issues, they will immediately dispatch a hardware for you. So that's the beauty of Pulse. For rack configurations, this is for in case if you have more than 3 nodes, which doesn't apply to my environment. So basically, let me go through all of these options, and then I'll come back and I'll focus more about this fault tolerance domain and what it means exactly. So I'll be back again for this rack configuration. a network. We have under the network we have HTTP proxy. If in case your environment you have a proxy, you can configure it over here. Name servers, you can provide the DNS IPs over here, and you can remove them if you want. As you can see here, I have two public DNS because I'm using Nutanix Community Edition. So when I'm configuring it, Nutanix configure when you are doing the setup, you will be provided with this IP and this IP. This is just because Nutanix Community Edition must have access to the internet. So in productions, obviously, you will have your production DNS. It is strongly recommended to have more than one DNS inside the name servers. Network configurations, from here you will have access and control over the network. In the first options, you have subnet. In case if you want to configure or create a subnet, you can just create here, provide a subnet name, which virtual switch that VLAN will be accessible, and then the VLAN ID. You have you have a good option here in Nutanix overall, which is IPAM. So basically, you can, let's say, exclude some IPs from your DHCP and just provide it here as a pool. So in case if you have a HV, if you have a virtual machines, those virtual machines will get IP from here. You can even integrate it, this AOS with the DHCP. You can provide the DHCP settings, and then um, even it gives you option to override the DHCP server. So it's a cool options. So when you have a virtual machines, you have already got a list of the IPs. Those IPs will be assigned to those virtual machines. It's a really good, cool options actually. So once you have the VLAN, you can edit it, you can delete it. Here, internal interfaces, you have the interfaces which you have on top of your CVM, the backplane, RDMA, management LAN, and the hypervisor LAN you can see over here. This is for the hypervisor. You can even create new interface, which is basically on top of the CVM. In case if you want to tap a separate VLAN on top of it. Virtual switch, from here we can create a virtual switch. So basically, when we talk about virtual switch, each virtual switch will be connected to one bridge, and then a bond. So a bond, it's actually the interfaces, the uplinks. So we can have an uplink of one, but when you're configuring it, it will always give you warning. So it is strongly recommended to have an uplink of two, actually at least two uplinks in one bond. The bond type, we have active backup of, let me show you over here. So if I go next, active backup, active with MAC pinning, active or no uplink bond, which will be only on top of that particular node. So as I said, the bond should have two uplinks, and then it is strongly recommended to have the same speed of the interfaces in one bond. So if you have 10 Gs and 1 Gs, or 25 Gs and 10 Gs, keep the 10 Gs in one bond and 25 or 1 G in different bond. All right, so let me cancel it here. Let me go back again here. I just wanted to explain this one as well. When you are doing any changes, you have two options. You can either use standard or quick. If your cluster is just like my cluster, there's no workload, you can just go ahead with quick. As the name it says, it's really quick, but there will be briefly interrupt on the workload. So if you have a workload and this is your productions, I strongly recommend you to follow the standard, which basically it will do the changes on top of one node, and then it will reboot it, and then it goes for the next one, and then goes for the next one until it's finished with all the nodes. So while it's rebooting one node, it will remove the or migrate the virtual machines from that node, so there will be no downtime um, for end users. Okay, network switch configurations. Usually it's really good to have a record of all the statics which is happening over the network between the cluster and network. So it's a good option to enable this switch configuration. Basically, you will add the management IP of your IP address and then SNMP. So there will be some visibility between the cluster and the um, top of rack or the Tor switches. You can provide even the next switches, but at least till top of rack switch, it's a good options to provide that visibility. So those network traffic and records will be available between the Nutanix cluster and the top of the rack switch. You have the SNMP profile over here in case if you want to add it. NTP server. Because Nutanix nodes, each node has different services. They communicate with each other. NTP is a crucial role, you can say. So to keep all of this nodes and services um, in a harmony, so you should have a good NTP server available in your environment. So yeah, it's one options which you don't want to miss once you configure your cluster. So NTP server is one of the must that you should have, and it must be a good source of NTP without any downtime or failure for it. So if you can provide multiple NTP servers over here. In case if you need this NMP for the Nutanix software and hardware, you can enable it from here. You can just provide the details over here, and this is the MIB in case if you need it to provide it to, let's say, your SOC team, that if they have requested you for these details. Under security, we have cluster lockdown. Cluster lockdown basically means that you will remove the password access for SSH, and it will be through the public key which it will give you over here. So basically, you will remove the password, um, the way of using the password to access the SSH of the cluster. Okay. For the encryptions, you can enable and provide and do the edit configuration from here. Data address encryptions. It gives you multiple options to either use the external KMS or server, or in even the native one. Each one of them has its own benefits and disadvantages, obviously. Yeah, so this is for data address encryptions. You can just edit the configuration, go through the options which you have over here. File system allowless, in case if you want to provide access to the Nutanix cluster, the unified storage with the external entities. Let's say if it's a E6i, Hyper-V, a backup solution, a physical server, um, you need to provide those IPs over here. So you will whitelist them to the Nutanix cluster so they can access the underlying unified storage. SSL certificate. Basically, you will have the Nutanix cluster itself will have a self-site certificate, which you can either regenerate it, or you can even import key and certificate in case if your organizations have its own self-signed or certificate, or from the inside the organization, or from the public authorities. So you can do that from here in case if you want to change the certificate. All right, so we'll go to users and roles. You can integrate your Nutanix cluster with the Active Directory or LDAP. right? So you have two type of authentication, either local or directory service. Local user management, in case if you want to create a new user. So in case if you go for a new user, you can provide them these roles: user admin, a cluster admin, and backup admin. And then if you see over here, uh, it will explain briefly what that means exactly, which role. Here again, you have role mapping in case if you added integrated your cluster with the OpenLDAP or Active Directory. You can select the users from, let's say, Active Directory and then provide or map a role to that particular user. Under alerts and notifications, we have alert email configurations. Like when the emails will be sent, do you want it to be daily digest, like uh, um, only one time at this time, let's say, or you want to receive every for every alert you want to receive a different error, different email, which you can select and unselected. It gives you more options for to do further custom settings. You can do it from here. SMTP server to send an email. So this, if you have Office 365, or if you have Exchange or local email relay, whatever you have, you can just provide it over here. And obviously you have to whitelist this IPs of CVMs, all of the CVMs from your SMTP server or email relay or whatever you are using in your environment. Okay. Under data residency, we have configure witness, which we normally use for if you have metro availability. Degraded node settings, it's a good option, which by default is selected inside Nutanix cluster. Basically, what it does, it's in case, let's say, if one of the nodes has a network issue and it's doing flopping, the network interface is coming up and going down. So once enable degraded node detection is enabled, then Nutanix cluster will detect that that node, something is wrong with it. So it will remove that node from the Cassandra ring until you, so let's say, sort out that issue, and then you will select that particular node and you will say, okay, I have fixed this issue, and it will bring it back, or it will add it back inside Cassandra ring. So it's a good option. So to it's kind of like it will do the self-healing in case that it will detect that that node is not usable or something is wrong with it. Until you fix that issue and you tell it, okay, I have fixed this issue, you can have this node back again. Maintenance resiliency, they have added this option, I believe, from 6.8, AOS 6.8 and above. Basically because of the data locality which we have inside the Nutanix. Once you have an issue, it will try to do the self-healing. It tries to does the rebuilding of the data. So in case if you have put a replication factor 2 or 3, depending on whatever you have selected. So if one of the node is down, whatever data is there, it will try to write it on the second node. Let's say if you have 3 nodes, one is down, so whatever data was there, it will try to write it on the different node, which is, let's say, hosting now the virtual machines. So this is good, but the issue, or let's say the problem is, sometimes you are just rebooting the node, or the node is being rebooted because you're upgrading the firmware, or let's say you're upgrading the OS. So that's a maintenance, it's not a failure, right? So by smart rebuild, it will differentiate that. But anyway, you can remove this smart rebuild. I mean, you have the option even to remove this. Let's say if you just want always the Nutanix to take care of it, even if you are doing the maintenance, because you're not worried about the speed of this for the build. You want to be always 100% secured. So because we all know sometimes you do the maintenance and then let's say at the middle of the maintenance or at the middle of the boot something happens. So the good thing is you have the option to remove it. All right, so manage VM high availability. It's basically the HA, which which is always known, let's say, on the other hypervisors. High availability, let's say, inside the VMware. What it does, if I go back here inside the home page, you can see here HA is best effort. Basically means that okay, you have let's say 10 virtual machines or 20 virtual machines. In case one of the nodes goes down, it will do its best to restart those nodes which were hosted on that node which is down now on the remaining nodes. But in case it couldn't, because there is no available resources not available there, then that virtual machine will be down until you take care of the let's say something. You provide more resources, or you let's say shut down one virtual machine or remove the some memories because you did not enable that option. So in case if you want to have the same as let's say VMware or any other hypervisor, you can simply select this one. So once enable HA reservation is there, it makes sure that there is enough resources available on the remaining nodes or in each node in case one of the nodes goes down. That's what basically means. So it will reserve resources for you. So if I click save, you can see that it will try to migrate to other hosts, some virtual machines. Basically, it does like a DRS of the VMware. And if I go back here again, HA is okay. That means protected against one node failure in case if it goes down, it 100% assures you that those virtual machines will be restarted on the remaining nodes because now it makes sure that there's enough resources available on top of each node. Basically, I think it will save um, resources of the heaviest node. So if your heaviest node is using let's say 6 CGB of the memory, it makes sure that much memory is available on top of the remaining nodes altogether. Okay. Rebuild capacity, reserve rebuild capacity. Again, it's the same concept what we saw here, but this is for the storage. It ensures that you have enough resource available on top of the storage in case one of the nodes goes down. So if again I go to the home page, if you click on the view details, you will see that we have here rebuild capacity, right? So it is already has occupied reservations for this cluster, which is basically here. All right, so we go one down here again. Let's see what the next one. Redundancy state. I'm gonna cover this one again with the what option we had here. I believe it was rack configuration. Yeah, so I will cover this one. And then restore Prism Central in case if you had the Prism Central in your environment and you were taking it backup. I mean, when you have a Prism Central, you have an option to like it allows you to take a backup of the configurations, which you can save it to S3 compatible object storage. It could be on top of any cloud or even local. So you can restore it in case if you took the backup, you can restore that backup over here for your particular Prism Central. Language settings. Here, these are the settings which you have for your type of Nutanix. So here we have English, Chinese, Japanese, and Korean. I hope we see more languages here in the real soon, if near future. Region, if you want to change it, and then you have the timing, numbers, and how it's actually on top of your cluster. You have UI settings here. It gives you an option to change the theme if you want to change it. I think it's light and dark theme, if I'm not mistaken, and then you have the auto. We have some time restrictions for the idle timeout as well, which for session idle timeout, which you can configure from here. And in case if you're interested in the banners and banners, you can just provide it over here and just enable the banner for your cluster. Okay, so that's it. Let's go back to the two options which I didn't do it, redundancy state, and we have the rack configuration. Okay, rack configuration, default tolerance actually. So if I want to explain it, let me see, I've opened something here already. Yeah. So for the node configuration, obviously it means if you have, let's say, 3 nodes, if one of them goes down, if your fault tolerance is at node level, right? So if one of the nodes goes down, the other nodes will take care of it. But then you have a block and rack. So for block, a block basically means you have a chassis, enclosure, or whatever you want to call it. Inside that you have more than one node. You have 2 nodes, 3 nodes, or 4 nodes, right? So let's say you have a chassis. Inside it you have 4 nodes, and then you have 3 similar blocks. So each one of this we call it block. And if the, let's say, those limitation which is there, which is about the models and the hardware and stuff like that, and everything is matching, let's say, in case if you have this block awareness, it knows that you have, okay, 3 nodes, 3 blocks, sorry, and you want them to be in the block awareness. So if the node is going to write the data, it will write the data, let's say, in a way that it will be one copy will be here and one copy will be here and one copy will be here, right? And that's what it makes it tolerate. Let's say if one full block goes down, when you're enabling this block and rack awareness, you're basically telling your Nutanix cluster, hey, I have 3 blocks, and then it will know that, okay, when it's trying to write the data and let's say the replication factor, based on whatever replication factor you have, it knows that, okay, if I'm going to write the virtual machine on top of this node and I'm writing the data, the copy of the next, let's say the copy of the data won't be saved here on top of the same block. No, it will be in different block and then different block. Again, it's based all on the replication factor which you have, right? So that's the meaning of block or rack awareness, and that's how it allows it to tolerate that block failure or rack failure. The rack awareness is, again, is same concept, but let's say you have the blocks, each of these blocks in different rack. So in case one of the rack loses the power or network, you have still 2 rack available. Now inside each rack can be 1 block, it can be 10 blocks. But as I said, if you are going for the rack awareness, that means each rack should have the exact same amount of blocks available. Again, I'm saying you will have some hardware specific limitations or conditions which you have to apply to use the block or rack awareness. All right, so this is the block and rack awareness. Now we come to redundancy state. I think I brought another one. Yeah, so as you can see here, um, redundancy state is basically same as the fault tolerance, right? Um, when in Nutanix, normally they say it's a fault tolerance 1 or 2, or redundancy factor is 2 or 3, right? So redundancy factor 2 means you're actually fault tolerance 1, and redundancy factor 3 means that your fault tolerance is 2. Basically, it means that you are able, the cluster is able to tolerate one um, failure, let it be a hard disk or a node. So as you see over here, we have the desired awareness type. As I said, we have node, block, and rack. And then here we have the FT level, the fault tolerance level. Can I tolerate 1 or 2? And then we have EC enabled, erasure coding. If erasure coding is enabled on top of your cluster, obviously the minimum number of units, let it be node or rack, will go higher. Erasure coding, basically it's just it uses one more node to for parity. So that's one way of which Nutanix uses it in the cluster for data protection. So as you can see here on the node level, for fault tolerance 1, we need minimum 3 nodes, and then it can tolerate failure of 1 node or 1 hard drive. Again, if we have fault tolerance level 1, if EC is enabled, erasure coding is enabled, then we need minimum 4 nodes. But again, it will allow us 1 node or 1 hard disk failure at the same time. Um, Again, for the same awareness of nodes, we have, if you want the fault tolerance 2 or redundancy state of 3, then if erasure coding is not enabled, you need minimum 5 nodes. And if erasure coding is enabled, you need minimum 6 nodes. And it can tolerate 2 nodes or 1 node and 1 hard disk. Yeah. And then again, the same applies for blocks and racks. Make note over here that when we are talking about the units, for block will be block, it won't be node. And when we are talking about the rack, it will be rack, not node or block. Alright, that settings explained briefly from me. I hope it was helpful for or useful for you guys. Thank you very much.